Professor John Volmink is currently the president of the Ubuntu Global Network and is the co-chair of this great initiative, the Ubuntu United Nations. I'll call upon Professor John Volmink.
Good day and welcome to all the delegates and participants to this very important event. And our focus today, as you know, is leading like Mandela. I'm speaking to you from Cape Town, South Africa. And there's a book that some of you may have read. It is a book by Martin Kalunga Banda. And the book is entitled Leading Like Mandela. And in the tribute to the book, Oliver Williams of the University of Notre Dame says the following. He says, the world is crying for great leaders today. And all we seem to get are crass politicians and business executives. So our purpose today is to present to you a good leader, an exemplary leader in Nelson Mandela. And we need to get a deeper understanding of how to lead like Mandela. In celebrating the legacy of Nelson Mandela, two concepts come to mind, as Moses Machipisa has just said. One is leadership, servant leadership in particular, and the other is peace and reconciliation. Let me just briefly make a few comments by way of introduction. You know, we're talking about Nelson Mandela's legacy. And legacy is generally understood as a gift. Something transmitted by or received from an ancestor or a predecessor or from the past. And Nelson Mandela was an amazing leader, and he left us an amazing gift of leadership. And the kind of leader that he was comes as a blessing to the world once in maybe a century or more. So our focus today is on Nelson Mandela as a servant leader. And there are two major types of leadership. One is the leadership of domination, and we have our fair share of those people in the world who believe that if you have to make a choice, like Machiavelli has, you have to make a choice, is to be feared is much safer than to be loved. And that some people believe that. But then there's also, in contrast, the leadership of servanthood. And the leadership of servanthood is Ubuntu leadership. And that leadership isn't about making our names known by virtue of our positional authority. It's about having the ability to love and respect the people in our care, using the authority we've been given with kindness and with generosity. So if I want to put it broadly, servant leaders are actively, they actively seek the ideas and unique contributions of the people that they serve. They believe that none of us are as smart as all of us. And this is how servant leaders create a culture of learning and an atmosphere that encourages followers to become the very best they can. Also, servant leaders have humility. The humility and courage and insight to admit that they can benefit from the expertise of others, and those people that are seen to have less power than them. So servant leadership emphasizes that the responsibility of a leader is to increase the ownership and the autonomy and the responsibility of those in your care, to encourage them to think for themselves and to try out their own ideas. So the word servant and leader are usually thought of as being opposites. And when two opposites are brought together, you get a paradox. So this paradox had emerged by bringing servant and leader together. Servant leadership have been understood as a paradox. And I want to say that we must not confuse humility with being an attitude of groveling civility. Humility and servant leadership do not imply that leaders have low self-esteem or take an attitude of civility. Nelson Mandela had the courage to disagree with his support base when he had to lead from the front. He was not afraid to give his followers an unpopular message sometimes. And as an example, I remember very clearly the day when one of the prominent leaders, Chris Hani, who was supposed to be taking over from Mandela, was killed by somebody from Eastern Europe who came here with fairly mean intent and killed Chris Hani. And the whole nation was just waiting for Mandela to say, now we have civil war. Because rage had built up to such a boiling point that civil war would have easily exploded. And that night, Nelson Mandela gave a speech on the 13th of April, 1993. I was in Johannesburg at the time. And it was pivotal, that speech, in bringing us back from the brink of disaster. It is important to note that although not explicitly stated in that speech, the principles of Ubuntu run throughout that speech. It is in fact a masterclass of how the power of Ubuntu can practically bring about peace in the midst of the most volatile situation. And so I just want to say that Nelson Mandela deeply believed that people are not born hating and that love comes more naturally than hating. He reminded us that we are bound together by a common humanity and each individual has inherent dignity and worth. And he had a genuine commitment to the well-being of others. So it is Nelson Mandela that taught us that though we differ across cultures and faiths and through history, and although history has divided us, rich from poor, free from unfree, he says, powerful from powerless, race from race, Nelson Mandela says we are still branches on the same tree of humanity. Thank you very much.